If a little green is good, more is even better. Now, back to Green is Good with John Shegerian and Mike Brady.
Welcome back to Green is Good, and we are so excited and honored today to have author Margaret Hyde on the phone with us. Welcome to Green is Good, Margaret.
Thank you so much.
And Margaret is talking with us, Mike, from one of the greenest homes in America, her home in Southern California. Margaret, you not only talk a great talk and are an amazing writer, photographer, publisher, etc., but you actually really do walk a green walk.
Well, I certainly try to. In every aspect of my life and my business and in my home, I really try to be mindful about the impact I'm having.
Well, we're going to be talking about your great book series today and your wonderful, the Mos Nose and series that you have. But we also want to start with our listeners and give a little inspiration to them on greening their home and how and why you did it, and just explain your wonderful journey, because, Mike and I got so inspired and excited when we read your story and your journey. That's why we wanted to have you on, because you've truly done something that very few have done, and so many are intimidated by taking that first step. So explain a little bit, how you came to work and live from one of the greenest homes in this whole country.
Well, my journey started, probably like 5 years ago. I had a home, a bigger home that consumed more, and was raising my children in it. And we used very little of the space in that home. And the excess use of energy and water and all that felt really wasteful, and it didn't feel like the message I wanted my children to have about, how to live. And so I started looking for, what would be a more mindful way to live. And I found a 1910 Craftsman that was in very bad shape, and I decided to see how green I could make the home, how sustainable, how many things I could reuse in the home, and how I could really use less resources living in it. Because it was an old home at the time, I had no idea what kind of adventure I was embarking on or how green the house was going to turn out. But we've been able to make this house so sustainable and green that it was the first LEED Platinum remodel in the United States.
Wow.
And I believe it's one of the greenest homes in America right now. And
there was and you said a 1915 Craftsman in Southern California.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about taking that first step. Now, are you or your husband, have you come from the contracting or architecture industry at all? Is there any of that in your, profession?
No, my husband had worked with some people in the green industry as their representation, so he was familiar with the guidelines, the USGBC guidelines of the LEED program. But no, we really had to start from scratch and really learn. And a lot of times, what's green or sustainable is not obvious because there are pluses and minuses to all the different things you can do, and it really has to be particular to your particular home and the part of the country you're in about what is really going to be green and sustainable.
Yeah.
So we had to learn a lot.
Well, I mean, and that's important. So talk about the learning. I mean, obviously you're a writer, so you live in the book world and the information and the original content world. Did you go to the internet? Did you go to books? This is such a new industry and such a new journey that so many in the United States, so many of our listeners want to take. How did you go about getting the information so you can make some good decisions?
Well, I mean, we definitely, I did research online, but there's so much information out there, and the technology is evolving so quickly that I would find a cool product and be like, that would be great to have in the house, and then it would just be something that was still in development. So we really found we had to turn to some green consultants.
Okay.
And luckily now there are, in most communities, people who are starting to specialize in that. And beyond that, we had to look for people who were experts in different areas. For example, we have the first legal gray water system in Santa Monica where we are.
Wow. Explain what that means for people who don't know what gray water system is. I mean, that's fascinating. Explain what that is, though.
Well, here in Southern California, we all really need to be mindful about the water we're using. So that was really important to us. And gray water is actually the water from your sinks and shower and washing machines. That's the water we primarily use. And the gray water system takes that water after it's been used and filters it and stores it in a tank outside underground, and it's used in our irrigation. So it's actually cleaned before it goes into the garden. So a lot of people get concerned. They don't understand. They get confused between gray and black water,
Right.
which black water is sewage water. It's not that water.
Right.
And it's been filtered completely before it goes into the garden. But that means we don't have to use any water in our garden. We also chose to use drought-resistant plants and indigenous plants and really limit the water use anyway. But using the gray water system, we really have more water than we can use most of the time.
Margaret, that's a fascinating. Wow, that is amazing. But is there an ROI? Is there a savings for your family from that? Does Santa Monica give you an offset on your water bill because you're recycling your gray water?
Well, they don't give us an offset, but our water bill is much lower.
Okay, gotcha.
We don't have to use that water in the garden. We reuse our water. So, it's cut our water bill in half.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's really more of scalability and efficiency, right?
Yeah, and also, they had not had a real process for making this legal, and so Santa Monica used us as a case study. And so now for other people going to do it, they have a process they can go through.
So now there's the template because you and your husband were the pioneers on this. Real quickly, how was it expensive to excavate and put in the proper kind of tank and get the pumping so that you could get it to irrigate your vegetation?
The gray water system was not outrageously expensive, and if you're redoing a house completely like we're doing, you're going to be digging and doing pipes anyway.
Right.
And so that was something we were going to have to put in new irrigation. The house really didn't have any. So there are companies now that actually are starting to design these systems so you can actually buy a system, so you don't have to do the kind of research we did.
That is so great. So you set the protocol, and you're really, as Mike just said, one of the pioneers in this. That is fascinating. Talk a little bit, Margaret, one of the greatest things that everyone hears about on the news all the time is energy. From Inconvenient Truth to what's going on today around the world and how we're all affected by energy and our dependence on foreign oil. Talk a little bit about what you did to make your house more independent and also energy independent and also more energy efficient.
Well, I think energy efficiency is the key. Of course, we have some solar. We have both types of solar, solar for heating our water and also, solar for our energy use. But beyond that, one thing we really did to cut our energy use is we really made the house efficient. A 1910 Craftsman, before we got to work on it, the energy was just flying out because the insulation was old and all that. So we really had to get the house sealed and re-insulate, and we chose to use materials that are easy to get into crevices in an old house. We used blue jean insulation in places where they needed to blow it in.
Yep.
So we weren't destroying the house. And then we also put a new roof on the house. We put a metal roof that has lots of insulation underneath it and is also reflective, which is a really great green feature. And doesn't need maintenance and ends up paying for itself.
What's the metal made out of, if you don't mind us asking?
It's 40% recycled material.
Okay.
So it's a bunch of different metals.
Okay.
But it's light and reflective, and that's really good for the environment overall.
Amazing.
But it also increased our energy efficiency. We chose appliances that all are very energy efficient, which is something that everyone really should do. Is getting a new appliance now will actually end up saving you money.
Wow.
In the long run.
Right.
And then we used geothermal heating and cooling, which in the old days was known as Roman cooling because the Romans actually invented it.
Right.
Which, for people who don't know, it's in our front yard they dug. For us, we needed, I think, about 16 holes down deep into the ground, and then a pump pumps the cool air into the house from down deep in the earth, and we don't use Freon, and it uses a tenth of the energy that regular air conditioning and heating uses.
Unreal.
So those were really important things we did. We also used double and triple pane windows, which keeps the temperature consistent in the house. So all of these things are really important things we did.
I mean, so like you really took a compendium of all, like the greatest hits of what is right now state of the art when it comes to energy savings and energy efficiency, from Energy Star appliances to wind turbines, which create power for your children's treehouse, which is just the cutest thought actually under the sun. the photovoltaic solar panels. You really are using a mixture of all the state of the art that's out there today with regards to energy sources.
Well, I think that's, really the key, because you have to look at your location, your home, and see what'll really work.
Right.
Like we didn't put as many solar panels as we could have on the house because we only put them where we got sun. I mean, you have to look and see what's really going to be efficient for your location. And by combining a lot of these different technologies and efficiencies is how you really get to that really green, sustainable goal.
That is just amazing.
And, one of the things that you just touched on, too, and it's been kind of a constant theme that John and I have been discovering, Margaret, is that when it comes to energy solutions to replace our dependency on cheap foreign oil, there really is no one particular solution that is going to be the be-all and end-all. It is a combination, and it sounds like you're doing exactly that in your home. And how cool to go from something as high-tech and 21st century as photovoltaic panels, and then go old school, like back to the time of the ancient Romans for your cooling.
Exactly. I think Roman cooling is one of those things that people all over the country should really embrace. Especially I'm originally from the South. I mean, I think people would be stunned to see how their bills would go down, from using it. And it works so well. It gets the house so cool so quickly. We don't need it as much here in California, but it works incredibly well.
So now let's talk about the fact, now we've gone from energy. You also incorporate, as you said, the genes in your insulation. We've had them on our show, by the way, wonderful people. The people who make those recycled gene insulation materials. Talk a little bit about the other recycled or local materials you used for the finished materials in your house and other things.
Well, we tried to use and reuse things that had been in the house. So we did fun things like the house had old solar panels from way, way back, first generation, when they used to be all copper, and they had just been left on the side of the house. They weren't being used, and they had patinaed, and they have that beautiful copper, dark brown and greens, and so we reused those all throughout the house. We use them on our front gates. We use them inside as part of a TV cabinet. So we reuse materials as we were dismantling things to remodel the house. All of the wood in the house is reclaimed wood from different places. Our floors are all old barn wood that we found. Our bathroom countertops are all reclaimed teak from boat hulls. We also, like I said about the metal roof, it's 50% recycled metal. All the hardscape and all of that, we really tried to find things also within a 300-mile radius of our house. We were really focused on also the carbon footprint, too.
Got it. And last but not least, your vegetable garden. Talk a little bit about what you're growing in your backyard.
Well, it's actually in our front yard, which was really the fun part. I mean, it was the only place where we really got enough sun. So we have these wonderful raised beds where we're growing organic vegetables. Right now we have some wonderful sugar snap peas out there, and greens and beets and carrots and herbs, all sorts of herbs. And, as the seasons changed, we changed what we had. In the summer we had amazing squash and zucchini, like more than we could use. I mean, that's the amazing thing when you start doing this is that you really do need to share with your neighbors. You can produce so much vegetables and greens, way more than one family can eat.
Wow.
And it's fun and it's exciting. Like my youngest son, he knows the garden better than I do. It's even as he gets older, it's still an exciting experience for him. And one thing we did, which I had been a little scared of initially, is we compost for it, which I had been kind of like, I'm not sure about doing that. And it actually, it works so well in the garden, and it's so much easier than I could have imagined doing.
And we could sit here all day and talk about this house because there's so many other facets of it that we want to share with our listeners. But, you've inspired Mike and I. I'm sure you've inspired our listeners. What was the final lead score that you got when your house was assessed?
104 out of a possible 108 points.
Unbelievable. You truly are living in one of the greenest houses in America. But also, I want to now toggle to how you pay the bills, which is your, as a creative author, publisher, photographer. Talk a little bit about, you work out of your home also, Margaret, correct?
Yeah, I'm sitting in my home office right now. I'm very fortunate to have no commute. And I have been working on the last 4 years my Mos Nose children's book series, which is about Mo the dog, and he uses his nose to see the world as dogs do. And our books feature press-to-smell technology, which we patented, which enables children to actually smell what Mo smells, and our books are also all Oracacia aromatherapy for kids.
How cool is this? I've never heard, Mike, have you heard of this ever?
No, but I have heard of the link where they're starting to look at kids with sometimes diagnosed rightly or wrongly with ADHD and hyperactivity, using aromatherapy to help get the kids into a calmer space.
Yeah, and when I was imagining this, I actually, it doesn't sound like it could be true, but I woke up with the idea in the middle of the night and wrote the idea for the stories, and that you could actually smell what he smelled, and still thought it was a good idea the next day. And I had been inspired, I think, because as a kid I loved scratch and sniff and those stickers and the smelly markers. And we know they didn't smell exactly like they were supposed to, but I loved them. And I thought, how great would it be to find something that was like an update on that, which actually smelled like what it was supposed to smell like and actually was good for kids.
Oh, my gosh.
So we started down this road of looking into what different technologies there were and finding out all about essential oils, which I at the beginning didn't know a lot. And we really made these books so they're a fun, engaging experience for kids to keep them reading and interacting with a book, and also they get these wonderful aromatherapy scents.
That is just incredible. First of all, Mike, I know you're on. Margaret's great. And if you just joined us now, listeners, and you got your iPad or a laptop or computer open in front of you, you've got to go to Margaret's great site, www.mosnose.com, mosnose.com. Mike, you're in front of the site right now.
It really, and John, it is so cool. I mean, it is just so engaging, the artwork alone. I've fallen in love with Mo the dog, and Margaret, Mo there is a real Mo, right? You want to do the backstory on that real quick?
Yeah, there is actually a real Mo. I actually dreamed about my best friend's dog. Mo lives up in Northern California, and he is a rescued dog. And so when I had written the story, I called my friend and I said, I wrote a story about your dog, and I really think you should illustrate it, and I want you to do it in Japanese ink brush painting. And she thought I was a little crazy. She's an oil painter, but she learned this new technique and managed to bring her real dog into these stories in such a loving and really inspiring way.
Now, first of all, not only is your house one of the greenest houses in America, greenest homes in America, where you live with your now 4 children and your husband, and you work out of your home, but you also have made your books eco-friendly. You want to discuss that a little bit, Margaret?
Yeah, with Mos Nose, in my life I want kind of everything to be mindful, and so I, of course, wanted the books to be as green and as sustainable as possible. So they're printed with soy ink on recycled paper. They're printed all here in California, and because we try to keep the carbon footprint really low. And then, like I said, we use the Oracacia aromatherapy, which is one of the highest quality essential oils there are. All
right. Now, and Mike, Margaret's very humble here. She also mandates a donation of 10% of the book's profits to animal and children's charities.
Yeah, that was really important to me. And in every aspect of my life, I try to give back and be of service as well. And because, like I said, the real Mo was a rescued dog, and he had inspired me, I really felt like it was important for us to give back to the animals in need and children. And as the books have come along, we have our 6th book coming out. With different books, we've tried to actually touch on different organizations. Our book that came out, our last book, or book before that, Mo Smells Blue, Mo was on a trip to the beach, so we tried to give to charities that help the ocean.
Wow.
And we gave proceeds to plasticfreeocean.org. So we're really trying to connect with organizations that do things that really help our environment and children and animals in need.
And is it our understanding that the books can be purchased both on your website, mosnose.com, amazon.com, and also in bookstores?
Yes, they're in Barnes & Noble across the country and other specialty stores.
Wonderful.
But we run a lot of great deals on our website, and we also have a Mos Nose app in the iTunes store, which is for pet owners and parents, which has a national pet search where you can find anything for your pet, from a vet to a dog park to stores, and it also has games for your children, really fun games.
This is so great.
And we have a new book coming out in June, Mos Nose Pink, which is our latest book. So that's a really exciting one, which I know all the little girls will like, I hope.
So now talk about, this is important though. I mean, there's so many things you've hit on today, and we're down to just 3 minutes, but I do want to, you've invented this scratch and sniff technology for books. Are you licensing it for other publishers and other writers now? Is it catching on big time?
Well, our press-to-smell technology, we just received our final patent, and we're getting an international patent. And we do have interest from major toy makers and other publishers to use the technology. And we're in the process of exploring that possibility. Yes, other people would love to use it because there's nothing else like it.
Wow.
And we've also done extensive testing with our technology, because you can press they've been tested in the lab where you can press it over 150,000 times, and it still smells exactly the same.
That is just incredible.
Pretty amazing. You can actually watch it. I'm not sure where it is on the website right now, but there's a video that one of our scientists did of the machine pressing the pack over and over again, testing the scent. So it's pretty amazing technology. I think it'll start to be a lot of different places.
Margaret, I live in 24-hour days. Do you live in 40-hour days? Because how do you have 4 children, a husband, have built one of the greenest homes in America, and also are a successful author and and publisher? Oh my gosh, where do you create the time from?
I think because I do work out of my home, that gives me a little more time. But I will say I'm a little tired with my new baby.
Well, you have great right to be. We're down to the last minute or so. Anything you want to share with our listeners as we sign off, and anything, any words of wisdom or anything you want to share with regards to your wonderful concept of mindful living?
I think if people look around their lives and see things that they think they could change, start small, make the changes that are easy to make, and living that way, I think, makes you feel really good and inspired to make even bigger changes. But if you take baby steps, maybe it's changing your appliances at first, or walking somewhere instead of hopping in the car, or you're beginning to recycle or something. But taking the small steps lead to even bigger changes and more mindful changes in your life, I think.
That is just so wonderful. And Margaret, we're just honored to have you on today. You are just amazing and so inspiring. And for our listeners out there, again, go to Margaret's great website, www.mosnose.com or Amazon.com or Barnes & Nobles, and buy her latest book. I think you're coming out with your 6th in the series. And, just thank you for being with Mike and I today. Our listeners are going to really, truly I'm sure they were just delighted with this whole show. Margaret Hyde, mindful living you taught us about today. You are an ecopreneur, an entrepreneur, a writer, publisher, and photographer, and truly living proof that green is good.